Okay, so practice exam 1B. The first question that we have, just straighten this out a bit, says, the city of Chicago has a satisfaction rating of 85 for Sprint. In terms of Sprint satisfaction rating, Chicago can be considered an outlier because, so why is 85 an outlier? So we have to figure out what the outlier is for Sprint. That's the first step. So we can have an outlier. We can have two outliers by calculating the lower and upper limit. So to calculate the lower limit, you would do Q1 minus 1.5 times the interquartile range. This is going to give you the lower, so that you can see this a little bit better. This is going to give you the lower limit. To get the upper limit, you're going to do Q3 plus 1.5 times the interquartile range. So this gives you the upper limit. So any value that lies above the upper limit or below the lower limit would be considered an outlier. The first thing we need to get is the interquartile range. So if you guys remember the formula for IQR, it is quartile 3 minus quartile 1. So the formula for the lower limit would be, so looking at Sprint here, would be Q3. So let's first get the IQR. So 70.5 minus 62. And to do this, I'm actually going to switch to Excel because I think that's going to be easier to calculate. We'll do all of this stuff on Excel. So we're going to get the lower and upper limit using Excel. Give me 1 second as I switch over. Okay, so we are going to calculate the IQR first before doing the upper and lower limit. So we said that that was going to be 70.5 minus 62. So I'm just going to use cell referencing because that's a lot easier to do. So we have 8.5. Now, if you remember our formula for the lower limit, I'm going to put LL for lower limit. That's going to be Q1. So that minus 1.5 times the interquartile range, which we calculated here. So I'm just going to use that. So there's our lower limit. Now we can get our upper limit. So I'm going to do UL for upper limit. And we said the formula for that was Q3, so here, plus 1.5 times the interquartile range. And there we go. So we get 83.25. So now we can take a look at our answers. Let's switch back to the okay. So from what we got our lower limit of 49.25 and our upper limit of 83.25. So 85 is going to be considered an outlier because it lies above this upper limit, 83.25. So that means our answer here would be C. Okay, and now let's move on to the next question. This also relates to this data set right here. So number 2 is asking, which of the following statements is not true for the satisfaction ratings? The answer here is going to be C. There are several outlier ratings for Sprint, but none for Verizon. That's not true. If you calculate the spread, the way that you can calculate spread is IQR, you're going to see it's the same for both of them. So yeah, if you were to test all of these out, you're going to see that all of these are true. But the one that's not true is going to be C. So there are several outlier ratings for Sprint, but none for Verizon. There are outlier ratings for Verizon. Okay. So number 3 is asking for the interquartile range. That's something that we already calculated in problem number 1, if you guys remember that. That was that 70.5 minus 62. When we did this on Excel, we got 8.5. So we can actually just say this answer is 8.5 because we already did that. Okay. So number 4 is saying, how do you characterize the shape of Verizon's satisfaction rating? So I like to visualize this. I think it helps a lot better, but let's take a look at what we have. So we're taking a look at Verizon now. Something I want to point out is the median is the same thing as Q2. Okay. So since we have the numbers here, I'm just going to draw it out here. Let's draw the box plot of Verizon. What is this going to look like? So here is our Q1. Our Q2 is going to be somewhere here. And here's our Q3. Okay. We need to figure out if our median, our Q2, lies more to this side or this side. Then we can determine if it's positively or negatively skewed. So the best way to do that is to calculate the distance between these two values and the distance between these two values. Okay, so the distance between Q1 and Q2, if you subtract 78 from 76.5, so I'm just going to put this here. 78 minus 76.5, you're going to get 1.5. Okay, if you subtract these two values from each other, so Q3 minus Q2, let's go here. So 78.25 minus 78, you're going to get 0.25. So this distance right here between Q1 and Q2 is going to be greater. Right, so that means this distance from Q1 to Q2 is going to be greater. So I'll put this right here. This is our Q2. So it's more to this side because 1.5 is larger than 0.25. Okay. So this is where our line is. Okay. And now we can draw the graph. So that means we're going to have a peak at this point. So if I were to draw this, you're going to have something like this, right? And to determine skewness, I always draw an arrow in the direction that the curve is going. So you can see that this is going this way. So this means that it is skewed to the left because we're going to the left. And the same thing as left skewed would be negatively skewed. So if we look at our answer choices, we're going to say it's slightly negatively skewed, B. Okay. Now going on to 5, what is the range? The range for Verizon. So if you guys remember the formula for range, that is our largest value, so our max minus our min, or largest minus smallest. So looking here, our largest value is 80, and our smallest value is 74. So 80 minus 74 is 6. So 6 is our range. Number 6 is saying, what is the value of the lower limit used to outliers for sprint's satisfaction rating. If you guys remember here in problem number 1, we calculated the lower limit for sprint. So we use this formula, the Q1 minus 1.5 times the interquartile range. When we did that on Excel, we got 49.25. So that's going to be our answer. 49.25.